A very good morning to all the viewers across India and elsewhere. GST has been a thorny subject, and one of the areas of confusion and non-compliance is the cross charge, and also the confusion between cross charge and input service distributor. Both these concepts are different. Centralized expenses like security, audit, communication, housekeeping incurred either by the head office or any corporate office is distributed to all the branches, and this concept is called the input service distributor because those expenses also are used by the branches for providing their taxable services. On the other hand, you may have some support functions by the branch and head office. Example could be customer at Chhattisgarh branch has a branch in Bangalore and it is serviced by the Bangalore office. That means the work is done by the Bangalore office. Now Bangalore office will cross charge to Chhattisgarh even though they are the same entity. The non-compliance of input service distributor can lead to denial of the credit, where the objection of the department could be that there is no receipt of service in the head office, whereas the credit has been taken in the head office. Non-compliance of cross charge is even more serious, where it can lead to tax demand with interest. There is, of course, a valuation possibility, which Mahadev will explain in the subsequent slides. What if I have not complied with either of them or both of them? What is it that I should do? I should now comply with it and reduce the interest impact. Otherwise, this will keep on going forward, and maybe after 4 years, it could, whatever amount I'm paying now could be double the amount payable. Remember that in this case, the credit of interest is not available at all. Distribution to one or two or more for multiple enterprises who have received it is also possible. Say I have 10 branches and this particular expense is relating only to my Gurgaon and Chhattisgarh branch. Then I can provide the invoice only to them because they are the people who have received it. Where such a hair splitting is not required, it can be distributed across the board based on the turnover of each branch. One more important aspect is that normally, while the distribution of the credit is done within the enterprise, that is the different locations in different states, if I have a contract manufacturer, then I can also allot this to the contract manufacturer. In a tribunal ruling in case of Parle, which came this year, relating to the SENVAT credit rules, which were, you could say, to some extent, the same as the ITC rule in GST. It would also be equally applicable. So this also is something which you could do. For taking you through the further nitty-gritties, my colleague, partner, Mahadev will take over.
Thank you, sir, for setting the tone. Good morning, viewers. Now we are going to understand some of the important provisions with respect to cross charges, and we are going to understand the some important provisions with respect to input service distribution. After that, we are going to understand the important conditions with respect to input service distribution. And in our last slide, we are going to understand the complexities or the intricacies with respect to this cross charge and IST, along with understanding of the difference between these two. Because this is one of the common issues which we have observed that not being compared by most of the taxpayers. And whenever the department is going to start the audit, this is one very easy point for them to catch. Therefore, it is very important for us to understand the difference between these two concepts and comply. Let us start with the important provisions with respect to cross charges. Section 7.1 we all know. So this is a section which deals with the definition of supply. So one of the entry in section 7 is that it includes any activities which are specified in schedule 1. These activities may be made or agreed without a consideration. Here it is very important to note that there can be activities which are specified in schedule 1 wherein even though there is no consideration, it would be considered to be a supply activity for the purpose of levy of GST. What is schedule 1? So schedule 1 includes a list of activities wherein even though there is no consideration, the GST may be applicable. So one of the entry in that schedule is that the supply of goods or services or both between related persons or between distinct person as prescribed in section 5025 when it is made in course or furtherance of the business would be considered to be a supply. Here it is very important to understand what is this distinct person means. Again, there is a discussion on this distinct person in section 25. We know that the section 25 is a section which has provisions with respect to registration under GST law. There are two subsections which are relevant for understanding the concept of distinct person, section 25.4 and section 25. Section 25.4, it talks about a person who has obtained or is required to obtain a registration, the registration under GST. It could be within the same state or it could be in any other state. Then in respect of each of these states, he would be considered to be a distinct person. Similarly, section 25.5, it talks about the establishment. It is a deeming fiction, even though it belongs to a single entity. If there are two separate registration, then with respect to these registration, it would be considered to be a distinct person or distinct establishment for the purpose of levy of GST. This is a new concept. Cross charge is not something which is very known to us because before GST we did not have the concept of cross charge. In other way, there was no concept of payment of GST whenever there was a supply of goods or services to our own branches or our own units in other places wherein the entity is same. Now we will understand the concept of input service distribution. This is not a new concept for us because if you had known about the service tax law or central excise law, so there was a concept of input service distribution in SENVAT credit rules as well. This was to distribute the credits on common input services. So we'll understand the definition of this input service distributor in GST law as well. This is very similar to what we had in central credit SENVAT credit rules as well. However, for the benefit of viewers, I'm just going to run through this definition. Input service distributor means an office of the supplier of goods or services which receives tax invoices issued under section 31 towards receipt of input services. Here the important terms which we have to note is that input service distributor means it is an office which receives the tax invoices towards supply of input services. Here in this case, the distribution of credit towards capital goods or inputs are not allowed. This concept of IST is only for distribution of input service credits, and it issues a prescribed document. In order to distribute these credits, the IST has to issue a prescribed document. So what is this document? This document is nothing but a challan, or you may call it as a invoice. This is only for the purpose of distributing these credits to other locations. For what? Distributing the credit of central tax, state tax, or integrated tax. If it is a union territory, then it can be a union territory tax as well. If the credits are distributed to other state, then any of these types of credits, these are always distributed as IGST credit. If I have a different registration in the same state, then the credit can be distributed as CGST or SGST. If it is in a union territory, then the credit would be distributed as CGST and UTGST. Tax paid on the said services to a supplier of taxable goods or services. So here what they are talking is, this concept is for distributing the credits to a taxable person having the same PAN. Therefore, I cannot distribute the input service credits if it is to a different PAN. So sir was talking about distribution of these credits to contract manufacturer. So that was something which was allowed in SENVAT credit rules, and there was also amendment to the rules because initially when this the concept was introduced in SENVAT credit rules, the distribution of credits to contract manufacturers was something which was missing. Later on, there was an amendment, and this amendment is something which is very much required in GST law as well in order to distribute the credits to contract manufacturers. We have understood the important terms or important definitions with respect to cross charges and input service distribution. Now we will understand some of the important conditions for distribution of the credits. There is a requirement of obtaining a separate registration as input service distributor. Remember, this registration is going to be in addition to our regular registration. So there are going to be two registration. One is as a normal registered person, and one more is going to be registration as a input service distributor. So how do you distribute the credits? So credit will be distributed based on pro rata of the turnover of aggregate turnover based on the turnover which has been achieved by the different locations. Say there is a head office and there are two factories. So factory A has a turnover of 60% and factory B has a turnover of 40%. So in this case, 60% of this common credit would be distributed to factory A and balance 40% would be distributed to factory B. And it is not that the ITC can be distributed whenever we want or whenever it is comfortable. So the rules are very specific, and the rule says that the input tax credit has to be distributed in the same month, in which the credits are being claimed. How do you distribute? So we have understood that there is a invoice or challan which has to be issued for this purpose, based on which the receiving location will take the credit. And once we obtain this IST registration, so there is also a requirement to file our GST return, IST return in form GSTR 6. So this statement is very simple, wherein the details of the credits claimed and the details of the credit distributed during the month needs to be incorporated. This has to be filed on a monthly basis. One more important point which has to be noted here is that it is not that only eligible credits needs to be distributed under this concept. Irrespective of this eligibility, the credits needs to be distributed based on the turnover of the respective registered places. At these registered places, then a decision has to be taken whether the credit is eligible or ineligible. It is not for IST to decide whether a credit is eligible or ineligible. And we have understood that in this concept only input services can be distributed. One important issue which we have observed in the past is that many companies, even though they have obtained the IST registration, they fail to get this invoices addressed to IST. So the invoices will have a registration number of the normal registered person instead of having the IST registration. So this is something which we should be mindful of. Now we will get into the main topic. understanding the intricacies and differences between these two concepts. I'll continue the same example which Madhukar sir took. So he talked about an example wherein the Bangalore branch supports the Chhattisgarh branch and it provides a service. So wherein the Bangalore branch is going to do a cross charge to Chhattisgarh. So I'll extend this example to understand it even in a easier manner. Say ours is a chartered accountant office. We have a branch in Chhattisgarh. We have a branch in Hyderabad in addition to Bangalore. Say there is a client in Chhattisgarh who wants to file GST appeal in Bangalore as well as Hyderabad. So he approaches the Chhattisgarh office. So what Chhattisgarh office can do? So there are two options for Chhattisgarh. One is the Chhattisgarh office can directly come to Bangalore and Hyderabad to file these appeals, or they can take support of this Bangalore branch or Hyderabad branch. So in any case, ideal way could be that it takes the support of Bangalore branch and Hyderabad branch. When it is done so, the Hyderabad branch is going to build to Chhattisgarh location for the services of this filing this GST appeal, and Bangalore office is going to build Chhattisgarh office for this appeal filing support service. Say Bangalore is the head office and there is a audit service. GST audit is being conducted for 2019-20. So the Bangalore office appoints the GST auditor. So the scope of this auditor is that he has to do the GST 9C certification for Bangalore, Chhattisgarh and Hyderabad locations. And he gives a single invoice which is addressed to Bangalore. The question is whether Bangalore can take the credit of the auditor which wherein he has done the audit for these three locations. The answer is no. Here the Bangalore office should have a IST registration. So using this IST registration, the credit can be transferred to Chhattisgarh and Hyderabad location in addition to Bangalore location as well. So how this would be done? We have understood that for this purpose, the turnover of all these three locations would be considered, and based on that ratio, the credits would be distributed. One important issue which is a cause of concern in this concept is whether the employee services are subject to cross charge. To give you an example, it could be say a marketing function. Saying the same example, the Bangalore office has the marketing function. The Bangalore office has the HR function, which supports these two branches in Hyderabad and Chhattisgarh. In such cases, whether for this employment services, the cross charges needs to be done for the purpose of paying GST is a issue which is there. There are different views, and we had a advanced ruling in case of Columbia Asia Hospital as well, wherein the ruling was in favor of department, where the ruling held that the GST has to be paid on such support service. If you had carefully observed this definition of this distinct person under section 25, which is a deeming fiction, so it is deeming only the persons or the establishment. It is not deeming the services or the functions which are happening at the head office. So therefore, there can be a view that the deeming fiction which has been created in section 25, it cannot be extended to supply of services. However, this view is subject to litigation as well. There is also flexibility with respect to valuation of such cross charges. So if any decision is being taken, so we can consider this valuation also before taking any decision. Rule 28, which talks about the valuation in respect of supplies between related persons or distinct person, there is a flexibility. It gives five options. So the last option which has been provided here is that if the receiving entity or the receiving unit can take the full input tax credit, the value which is mentioned on the tax invoice can be considered to be a open market value. In simple terms, considering our own example which we discussed, In this case, the Bangalore location or the Hyderabad location, when they support this Chhattisgarh office, they may have incurred a particular cost. Say the cost incurred is 10,000 rupees at each of these location. So this Bangalore office or Hyderabad office, they can charge 10,000 rupees, they can charge 1,000 rupees, or they can charge even 50,000 rupees, because the valuation rules is very flexible here, which says that the value which is declared on the tax invoice would be considered to be the open market value. So whenever the other locations are able to take the input tax credit, then it is better to take some value for the purpose of doing the cross charge without worrying much on the components of this valuation for services. Cross charge and IST, they are not interchangeable concept. This we have understood from the example. Sometimes what happens is, because we need to have additional compliance in form of additional registration, additional invoicing, additional returns every month, many are taking the route of cross charge for distributing the credits also. So there one needs to be very careful, because the concept is completely different. IST is only for distributing the credit on common input services. Cross charge is for charging the other location for support services or some supplies of goods or services from one location to another location. However, it may happen that for the past I have not complied with this. Reasons could be various. What I can do to rectify the past issues with respect to IST? Here, one option which we can think of is, consider doing the cross charge for the past period for which you have not done the IST. Say for example, in IST concept, you should have distributed a credit of 18 lakhs to Chhattisgarh location, 36 lakhs to Hyderabad location. What you can do is, you can cross charge for 1 crore plus 18 lakhs GST to Chhattisgarh from Bangalore, and to Hyderabad with the 2 crore plus 18% GST, which works out to 36 lakhs. Remember, this is only a solution for the past. This is not a remedy for future as well, because department can always question this mechanism. But for the past, if this mechanism is considered, then we can always prove that whatever GST was supposed to be distributed to other location has already been distributed. Uh, Next scenario could be that there is a manufacturing location in a place. Say there is a manufacturing unit in Bangalore, and there are branches in different states to sell these goods at the local market. If you carefully observe, whenever these stock transfers are happening, the value which would be considered for payment of GST is the sale value at these locations. When this manufacturing location in Bangalore is taking the sale value at these locations at different branches, so there can be an argument that whatever support service, whether it could be say a marketing service, or it could be HR function, or it could be tax compliance support, which has been done for these branches or the locations, the value is already factored in the sale value. Because whenever I'm determining the sale value includes all my expenses. In fact, it includes even the profit element as well. Therefore, it is very easy for us to establish that whenever there is a stock transfer of goods, the value of service has already been factored in. And anyway, we have the flexibility in respect to valuation as well. Time of supply is something which needs to be considered whenever there is a requirement of cross charge. Whenever the services have been identified, so it is better to comply with the time of supply of service, which is generally 30 days from the date of service. If there are support services of different functions, then there can be a simple contract between these branches. The contract need not be in a bond paper. So even a mail, there can be a mail wherein the parameters can be set in, or there can be a simple document which can say what are the support services which are being provided from the head office in Bangalore to other locations. And if there are any support from other locations to Bangalore, then even that can be mentioned along with the time of supply. So time of supply can be on monthly basis, or it can be off yearly, or if it is convenient, it can be done even on a annual basis. If it is not done, then there can be a interest implication. So this is something which we need to ascertain if there is a compliance for the past periods as well, because we are nearing 4 years of GST introduction now. Is there any positive in all these intricacies or complexities which you have seen? The answer is yes, because this mechanism, the flexibility in this valuation is giving a scope for us to optimize these credits which are accumulated. Say there is an accumulation of credits in Bangalore. There is an accumulation of credit in Chhattisgarh branch. There is a accumulation of, there is no accumulation. In fact, there is a cash payment of GST in Hyderabad location. So then what I can do? Then I can value my service in such a way that there are maximum credits which will get transferred to my Hyderabad location. Whereas to Chhattisgarh branch, as already there is accumulation of credit, I can have a lesser value with respect to this cross charge. Is it legal? If you ask me, this is legal, because if you see the valuation principle, the rule 28, it specifically says that whenever the receiving unit can take the full input tax credit, then the value which is declared on the tax invoice would be considered to be the open market value. So with this, I would like to conclude this presentation with the hope that there is a good understanding on this IST and cross-charge concept. This slide gives you a summary of the differences which you have discussed. So I'm going to copy this presentation in the description under this video as well. So I'm going to share the article on this, detailed article on this difference between cross charge and IST, and different ways in which this can be rectified for the past period, and along with the action points for the future has been provided. So thank you, viewers. So I request your suggestions. If you have any queries, you can put your comments, or you can also write us on madhukar@hiregange.com or mahadev@hiregange.com. Thank you, everybody.